You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it begins. Once again, yes, it is time to commence our broadcast week here on the old Options Insider Radio Network. If you're wondering what we have in store for you this week, another epic week in store for you on the network. A lot of places you can go to find that out. We put it out on Twitter. You can check out that image there. The entire week's worth of shows coming at you there, including all the exclusive stuff. Got a great one. The original market wizard himself, Mr. Sliba, joining us in the Pro Q&A hot seat tomorrow. That's going to be a fun one. A rare opportunity to pick his brain on stuff. So start getting those questions in already. A lot of you have wanted that one for a while. We made it happen for you out there. Of course, everything else, you can also sign up for our email. We'll send you out that every weekend. What's coming up on the network this week? If you want to engage all that fun stuff, including the Pro Q&As and indeed the options oddities on Friday, you got to go to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Definitely, this is a week you want to be in there having fun. If you're part of that already, send those questions in now by the members hotline. I got a feeling we're going to have a lot of them for tomorrow over there. And of course, however you listen, including the legion of you who listen after the fact on demand on your platform of choice. If you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing. It really does help the new folks discover all the content out there. As we saw from our question of the week last week, there are a whole hell of a lot of new folks out there. And of course, keep those questions coming. We do love to hear from all of you guys and gals out there. And of course, we can't kick off our broadcast week without first dialing back the old Wayback Machine to the halcyon days of the 80s when hair was big and, of course, wrestling was all the rage out there. We like to kick things off with our Name That 80s Wrestling. Now, if you recall last week, listeners, we had a bit of a dust-up, a bit of a kerfuffle. There was, I'm not afraid to say, some shady business by one of our contributors here on this. And you all know the story. You've seen it play out, the drama that unfolded in the days and weeks afterwards on social media. And as a result, there was quite a hue and cry, a bit of an outcry from those of you out there who wanted us, nay, demanded that we go back and repeat a name that you thought was unfairly besmirched. I had to go get approvals. You guys think I do this? No, I have to go get layers and layers of sign-offs and approvals. I talked to the judges. I said, can we do that? Can we make that happen for the people? Can we have a repeat in our 80s wrestling game? And they came back unanimously and said, due to the unfortunate circumstances of last week and the shadiness that was perpetrated on the masses out there, they will allow this one off. So for all of you out there, I know you are legion who requested this. Enjoy. This is for you. Can you name those 80s wrestlers?
For over 50 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment.
right, that's a good one. You know, the themes back in the day, especially that one, there actually were songs. They actually had lyrics. You could kind of hum along to it. There were fun tunes back then, and this was one of the good ones out there. You know, the great Jimmy Hart, Mouth of the South. Everyone knows him as a manager. He actually did a lot of the theme music back then, along with Jim Johnston and a few others. So he was firing on many cylinders, including parts of that one. Who would have thought to rhyme act of contrition with the name of our team here that we're talking about today? Let's go out now because he wasn't part of our skullduggery last week. He has a fresh, clean slate coming into the show this week. None other than the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com by way of Carmen Line Capital. Mr. Meatball, A, welcome back to the program. And B, can you name that greatest of tag teams, sir?
Well, the greatest of tag teams is the Legion of Doom, otherwise known as the Road Warriors. But that was Demolition. And a lot of people don't know this, but you know who Axe eventually is it Axe or Smash? I think it was Smash.
Smash became
Smash
the Repo Man.
Became the Repo
Man, the worst gimmick in the history of time.
Know that. The worst gimmick in history. But yes, that was Axe and Smash of Demolition. And everyone knows that in the order of tag teams, it goes Kai and Tai, then the Road Warriors, then the Rockers, then the Hart Foundation, then maybe Demolition.
I'm sorry. That
and
last
the
part,
Midnight Express. I forgot about
that
the
last
Midnight
part.
Express.
Somehow got deleted. I'm not sure how that could have happened over there. But yes, Demolition. You are correct. The greatest tag team of all time. Well done. Yes, and we don't bring up the Repo Man days. We don't bring up the Crush days. Clearly Vince kind of had it out for them after a certain period, and things fell off. But in the heydays, from parts unknown, these guys were the kings. All right, let's go on out now. I debate whether he even merits a seat on the show this week, given the breadth, the shocking nature of his skullduggery, listeners. But nonetheless, the forgiving person that I am, we shall welcome on once again the uncleist of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, they have already been guests, so you cannot earn points for this week. But regale us, if you have them, with some of your memories of Demolition, sir, and the happy times that ensued.
No, I mean, I liked Demolition. I thought they were a good tag team. I mean, just as a reminder, in the listener poll that we had last week, the Road Warriors did win 72-11, I believe, in percentages. So, I mean, our audience clearly favors the Road Warriors. And on top of that, the Road Warriors are undefeated against the Demolition. They've never lost to the Demolition. So, I mean, I think that pretty much says it all. But no, I thought they were a cool tag team. And I thought what they did a really good job with was kind of bringing some of that bad boy image, if you will, to the WWF back in the day. And, eventually they fizzled out like a lot of tag teams do and like a lot of things do. But what they did do is that they kept the era of the tag teams going. And I really wish they'd bring it back more. Or I wish they would have kept it going longer. Tag teams were not much of a thing as wrestling went into the 90s. And I think they made a mistake because of that. So definitely fans of the Demolition. But
yeah, Mike, do you remember do you remember in the Royal Rumble when Demolition was number 1 and number 2 and they had to fight each other?
Now you're speaking of that was a traumatic moment from my childhood. I had to deal with many years of therapy to overcome that. When they played Axe's music first and I got really excited, and then the next guy in, they played the same music and I was heartbroken. Then I said, you know what? They're just going to wait. They're not going to fight each other. And then they fought each other. And it was a traumatic moment for all involved. Let's not speak of that either. But that was definitely, it worked for what they wanted to go for. The emotional resonance of that moment, it was definitely there. The greatest conflagration in the history of WWE. Axe versus Smash. May it never happen again. As we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show. We do this, that we break down what is trading. At the top of the segment, let me just correct some errors Uncle Mike may have just said there because his data was flawed. I have the actual data results here from our poll. And, the poll was, is Demolition the greatest wrestling tag team of all time? And it was a 3-way tie for the answer with yes, at 33%, undoubtedly at 33%. And was there ever a down? Also at 33%. Surprisingly, but of course, did not get any love, but still a three-way tie. So that's the data that Uncle Mike was mistakenly referring to earlier in the show here. But now let's refer to some data over there on the markets. Newcomers to the show must be like, man, these guys really like their 80s wrestling. Let's get on out there. See what's lighting it up. And it was kind of a weird day. It started off, seemed like we were heading for the red. Then all of a sudden it seemed like, no. The green is gaining steam out there. The markets are turning back around. And now coming back into showtime, we have kind of a mixed market to kick off the show. Here we have the S&P up not quite 0.25%, a little less than that. We have the NASDAQ up right around 0.5%. And then the Dow back in the red, off almost 0.15% out there. So another kind of weird mixed day to kick things off out there. And of course, coming into showtime, we had seen our vol products starting to erode a little bit again, just because of all the back and forth. Now they're getting a little bit firmer, still down from our show on Thursday. They were about a 17.5 in VIX on Thursday. Coming into today's show, we were right around a 16.5. That puts it down about a point. VVIX was at about 107, actually up a point, but kind of hovering around the same level. VXX, when we kicked off the show, was at about a 22.5 out there. That puts it down almost a point, about 0.75 of a point from this time last week. UVXY back firmly in the freaking teens, 17.85 when we kicked off the show. Listeners, that's down almost a full point as well, about 0.9 of a point from Thursday's show. And VolQ, the at-the-money vol of NASDAQ, man, that gave up the ghost really quick, didn't it? It was just in the mid-20s, not too long ago, it seemed like out there. Now it's at a 15.75 when we kicked off the show. That's down 1.25 points from this time last week. So a lot of vol coming in across the board. Let's go back out now to the greasiest of meatballs. He did get our question right here, our 80s question, even if he did add some personal color that was not requested by the judges. But that aside, Mr. Meatball, sir, what has been lighting up your tape out there? And what are your memories of that enduring moment of the Royal Rumble that shocked the world, sir?
Yeah, that was a good Royal Rumble. I forget who ended up winning that one. Maybe Bret Hart. I don't know. But the big thing I'm watching is, volatility really falling off. We've got the VIX now. It's getting near red on the day. We did have a nice turnaround. We were down 20 on the open. We're now up 10. So a nice little turnaround for the market. And I think the big thing is that we've seen a big change in trend from the previous 6 months. Leading into October, we'd been talking about the fact that expiration week had just been like expiration selling every week. And then last week, we turned that on its head and the market went up. We're back above the 50-day moving average. The VIX is getting near lows that we haven't seen since the summer. And, there's some pretty busy options trading. We got a lot of the uranium names blowing higher, a lot of the clean energy EV space is up big today. And then energy as a whole, oil is strong, you name it. And there's some strength there. Technology is having a nice day today. Apple was down on the open. It's now up nicely, making a run higher, and looks like it maybe even wants to make a run at 150 again. The market as a whole is just it's holding up. I think we're heading for 4,500. I got to be honest. I think we're heading to new all-time high, and we might see the lowest settlement for the VIX on Wednesday of the year. That is lining up right now.
Ooh, interesting stuff afoot. A lot of areas to fire on. Markets rally and VIX coming off. Uranium, you're right. Denison Mines, looking at it right now, near printed $1.90 out there today, which is pretty much 52-week high out there. It was trading less than $1 not too long ago out there. So some more love for ye old uranium. Let's go back out to the Uncle-list of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is lighting up your tape on this mostly mixed Uncle Mike kind of day, sir?
We got the S&P 500 up 10, and just going into the day today, we started off down 20 on the S&P, so it was not looking good for the bulls to begin the day, but apparently it is right now. We have a little bit of selling going on in the 10-year note. We still seem to have that magnet right in that 1.5% area for the yield. The other thing that we have going on today, I guess I believe Apple's having some type of event right now where they're going to do something with a MacBook, so that might be helping Apple a little bit. But I think right now the market's waiting for some reason to do something. And that something could be all the earnings announcements that we have coming up over the course of the next week. And so we're roughly 60 points off the all-time highs in the S&P 500 right now. And usually when we're kind of knocking on the door of new all-time highs, a lot of times there's going to need to be some type of an event to make this go higher and break through the new all-time highs. And the earnings could be just that. So that's one thing that I'm definitely looking at as we're parsing out this market today. Silver's roughly flat on the day, so we don't have a ton of move there. The other story, of course, is I'm seeing it all over on social media. Bitcoin over 60,000. So that's just the excitement for all of our Bitcoiners out there. We have that happening. And so it'll be interesting to see where we go with that, to see if that can keep moving. Once again, my official Bitcoin position is that near term, it's a phenomenal thing to trade. I'm willing to bet. Long term, it's an awful investment. It's going to go the way of the dodo bird, and with where things are over the course of the long term. But with that, it is over 60,000 again. So there's a lot happening with it in the meantime. I think we're just waiting and seeing for earnings. Earnings are going to be the big thing over the course of the next week or so, and a little bit past that. And I think the real moves of the market are going to be shown at those times when we see earnings announcements released. And in the meantime, I don't think we're going to have very large movements until we see what the earnings are.
Well, let's get to those earnings in a little bit. We have hot off the presses as we speak, listeners, coming on in from our friends over there at Oratsland. We'll get to all the earnings move results and earnings season reports in a little bit. But first, let's break down the numbers for what we're seeing right now. Let's start out there in the land of the indices. And VIX actually doing a wee bit of paper out there, listeners, at about 350,000 contracts right now. The ADV, about 100 grand more than that, right around 450,000 out there. So it looks like a pretty robust day out there in the VIX. You buying what the meatball's selling? You think we are heading for the lowest settlement of the year tomorrow? We shall find out there in the land of VIX. SPY, 2.8 million contracts on the tape. That's some paper, but not quite at the ADV. It's pretty close. It's right around half of the ADV, which is closing, just ticked up to 5.75 million. So the SPY numbers continue to tick up there, closing in on 6 million ADV for SPY out there. The S already over 1 million, listeners, 1.02 million contracts on the tape. The ADV out there, a very robust 1.7 million. The Q is actually lagging the S, which is interesting. We've seen that a few times now in the last couple of weeks. The Q is at about 802,000 contracts. The ADV out there, 1.63 million. So the S in pretty much every facet surpassing the Qs these days, which is interesting. IWM, 318,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV back below 600K, 592,000 contracts out there. Let's go to the land of single names, the ever fascinating, ever evolving land of single names. This is where a lot of the action is these days, and number 10 on our top 10 most active out there today. By the way, it cost you almost exactly 250,000, 253,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. So if you listened for a while, you know that's a decent amount of paper to break into the top 10, listeners. That gets you to good old SOFI back in the top 10 out there today. And again, 253,000 contracts trading 2064, up about 1.25 just today. So nice pop for them. Number 9, Softy, 255,000 contracts. Number 8, NVIDIA. They're kind of a perennial top 10er these days. Number 8 today, 275,000. Number 7, it's NEO, also a perennial top 10er, 345,000 contracts out there. Number 6, it is Fuel Cell Energy. Haven't seen them in the top 10 in quite some time. Ticker symbol FCEL, trading 884 today, up about $1.50, nearly 20%. So a nice pop. Needs to be a nice pop for them. And I mentioned my cousin used to work for a fuel cell thing out in Connecticut, and this is headquartered in Danbury, Connecticut. I wonder if it was this one, if it was fuel cell, in which case that was 20 odd years ago. So they've been around for a bit in this fuel cell space. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This fuel cell space is kind of the hot again, cold again, hot again, cold again. Clearly today it is hot again and good for 397,000 contracts. Number 5, Facebook, 439,000 contracts. Numbers 4, here we are. The symbol Twinology back together again. Number 4, AMC, 459,000. AMD actually taking the title today. Number 3, AMD, 547,000. AMD lighting it up out there today. Number 2, yes, I said number 2. They have some news this week, and still only number 2 is Apple, 741,000. That means number 1 has to be the T-Dog, a.k.a. Tesla, out there today. 865,000 contracts, up 28.5 points, or 3.4% out there today. Trading 871 out there. So, yeah, Tesla just on fire out there today, even though not really on fire from an options perspective, not even hitting the 1M level, but still. Robust paper all across the board. Speaking of robust paper, we're going to see a lot of robust earnings paper. If you're even remotely intrigued by what's going on from an earnings vol perspective, listeners, you got to get out to theoptionsinsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. That's where you will find the freshly updated earnings move results, and earnings season reports from our friends over there at Orasland. Let me just break down some of the names that are popping off here this week, listeners. Tomorrow, we got J&J. P&G, so the acronym names. We got Netflix and United Airlines. Wednesday, Verizon, Abbott Labs, Tesla. You may have heard of them. IBM, Discover Financial Services. Thursday, AT&T, American Airlines, CROX, they of the infamous rubber shoe variety out there. Southwest, being some headlines out there of late as well, not the best. Snap, Intel, Chipotle, and Mattel. And Friday, we have American Express and Honeywell. And let's see what we've got here before the bell. These are results reports for some names out there today. Let's see if anything popping off before the bell today that is of interest. Well, we had State Street before the bell, back to the financial earnings out there. Their ticker symbol STT. They were at 92 3/4 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 4%. They delivered 3.7%. So not a lot of change out there in their announcement. And we've got a Dutch multinational conglomerate popping off before the bell as well. And we have Albertsons, the grocery company. They were at, 28.5 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 6.2%. They delivered 3%. So that's more along the lines of what we've been seeing out there of late. The season so far, listeners, again, we have 1 week under our belts. But so far, guess what? It's in the green. It's in the green, 106%. So that means our season is averaging at 106% right now. I do not expect it to stay there for very long. But for now, we can all enjoy and just bask in the reflected glow of earnings outperformance, because it's been a while since we've seen that, listeners. But you know what? Let's look ahead a little bit, because this is where the action and the excitement lurks. We have the newly updated earnings reports coming up for this coming week. And like I said, there's some names popping off. Let's just hit a couple of these here. Tomorrow, before the bell, we got J&J. They're at 161.30 as of this report. They were pricing in 379. In the past, they moved 264. So getting a little bit more juice out there. Again, given what's been going on in that side of the market, kind of hard to argue. P&G, they're at tomorrow before the bell as well. 144 and about a half. They were pricing in 312. In the past, they moved 297. So a little bit of extra juice out there. And again, any extra juice is worthy of note these days. Netflix, they're on the 19th after the bell. 682.30 is where they were trading. They were pricing in about $35. In the past, they moved 37. So a little bit less juice in the old Netflix. United Airlines, they're on the 19th after the bell. $48 even is where they were trading. They're pricing in 220. In the past, they've moved 236. So a little bit less juice there as well. Let's go out to Verizon, 52 1/4. They're on the 20th before the bell. They're pricing in nearly $1. In the past, they've moved about 3/4 of a buck. So a little bit extra juice, and percentage-wise, a whole heck of a lot of extra juice. On the 20th after the bell, we got good old Beamer. Don't talk about them much anymore. 144.61. They're pricing in 5 1/4. In the past, they moved 707. That's a lot less juice. Wow, here we go. Let's go to the names you guys are after. Tesla. On the 20th after the bell, 843, pretty much even is where they were trading. They're pricing in $38.5. Get this, listeners. In the past, they've moved 51.60. I think the technical term for that is dang. Wow, that's a lot less vol. Interesting. I need to dig into Tesla a little bit more. But perhaps, again, I haven't looked at it myself, but perhaps, dare I say it, a little light on the vol. Look how much they're moving today. A lot less vol in Tesla land, which is interesting. American Airlines, about $20 even. They were pricing in 84 cents. In the past, they've moved about $1. So not a lot of wiggle room there. CROX on the 21st before the bell. 137.20 is where they were trading. They're pricing in, get this, listeners, they're pricing in 10.30. In the past, they moved 15.09. My goodness, that's a heck of a lot less volatile. Wow. Who knew rubber shoes? So volatile. Southwest Airlines, 21st before the bell, $50 and a third is where they were trading. They're pricing in $1.68. In the past, they've moved to $1.40. I don't know. Given their recent headlines, maybe you could argue maybe they should price in a little bit more juice, but we'll keep an eye on that one. AT&T, 21st before the bell, 25 3/4 is where they were trading. They were pricing in about $0.0075. In the past, they moved 90 cents. So a little bit less juice out there. Let's go back out to my old stomping grounds of Intel. They're on the 21st after the bell. 54.5 is where they were trading. They were pricing in about $2.40. In the past, they moved $3.72. Oh, that's a lot less juice for Intel. Mattel, what's going on in the toy sector? They're on the 21st after the bell as well. A 1966, they're pricing in $1.50. In the past, they moved $1.25. So a little bit extra juice in Mattel. Snap, don't talk about them much anymore. They're on the 21st after the bell. 77 3/4. Ooh, they're pricing in $8. In the past, they've moved to 12 1/4. So taking a lot of bloom off that rose. Wow, that is, listeners, you need to check out these reports because there are a lot of evolutions from previous cycles out here and a lot of big changes in terms of how much vol people are pricing in. We just hit on some of the highlights. There are dozens and dozens of tickers here for you guys to check out, and there are going to be more coming throughout the season. So stay glued to the site there. You'll get all this data. And again, you can't beat the price. It is completely free as we keep on rolling right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, you know what time it is. It is time to get weird and wild and perhaps even whimsical. It is time for the Odd Block. Let's kick things off. Let's go out to NetEase. I haven't talked about them in a little bit. Ticker symbol NTES, of course, Chinese IT company. Trading right now, 98.44, up about 288, nearly 3% today. So a nice pop for them out there in NetEase. Of course, on the last year, it hasn't been as exciting, at least net. They've had some movement in between, but net on the year hasn't been the most exciting of years. They were trading a year ago 87.35, so down about $11 from where they are right now. And they kind of hung out there for a while. They started rallying in December. They went from the low 90s all the way up to pretty much topping out, looks like at their 52-week high of 134.33. And that was kind of the best it got for them. They sold off again pretty promptly. By March, they were back down to 102. And they kind of hovered in that range for a while until May. They were still trading right around 101. Then they tried a little bit of a resurgence, got up to looks like about 118, 119 actually in May. Hovered there for a while. And then in July, on July 21st, they got clipped again, sold off down to $88. Tried to rally back up to 105, gave it up again. By August 19th, they were trading their 52-week low of 77.98. And then they kind of rallied again there, got up to $96 on September 1st, and then gave it right back. So this has kind of been a lot of peaks and valleys here on this chart over the course of the year. Back down to $79.95 on September 21st. And then recently they've tried another leg up again. They were trading $82.14 on October 4th. By October 6th, they were trading about $89. And by the 8th, they were trading $96. And that's kind of where we find them right now, taking another leg up about, what did I say it was today? Up about almost $3, $2.91. On the day to 98.39. So you find them kind of smack dab in the middle of that 52-week range, but on the upswing after having languished back down there in the low 80s, high 70s not too long ago out there. So let's see what our Eye of Sauron found. Is someone scooping calls, thinking the rally is going to continue? Maybe they're blasting out some puts. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they're fading this thing. Let's find out. Our Eye of Sauron found, looks like it's some put action, listeners. A 10,000 lot, so a nice even round 10,000 lot of the NOV. These are the weeklies expiring on the 12th, listeners. 85 puts going up for 85 cents. This was, this market. This might get the award for the worst market we've yet seen on the Odd Block here. This market for these puts, listeners, was 50 cents at $5. That's just saying, hey, don't trade these. These are ridiculous. But they trade them, they did. They traded 10,000 of them for 85 cents. I mean, Does anyone guess what they did at that price point? It looks like, given just the ridiculous width of that market, I have to imagine they maybe sold those bad boys, but we don't know. That offer could be complete nonsense, and they could have lifted that offer for 85 cents. They came back in, though. They liked these. They did another 5,000, a total of 15,000 on the day. The stock was a little bit lower when they went up, 97 and a quarter, so about $1.20 lower. It's about a 48 vol, by the way, listeners. And also worth noting, they did these in the weeklies, and it seems like they did this specifically, which maybe would make me lean to think that they are selling these. Another reason, because the earnings are on the 18th. So they had gone another week, they would have gotten the earnings, which if you're buying these things, you probably would want them to cover you through the earnings event. So the fact that they specifically chose the weekly the week before earnings is also another clue that perhaps they are probably selling these bad boys. But Mr. Meatball, perhaps you disagree vehemently. What are your thoughts on A, this market, 50 cents at $5? B, what do you think they actually did on these puts? And C, do you like it?
I don't know much about NTES, but what I'm thinking this is a sale, right? I mean, these are way out of the money. I mean, they're a good $13 out of the money. Nice size trading. And yeah, I mean, I think these might have been a sale. I think they're a sale. Yeah. And, it's a yield play. I don't hate it. I think that they could get a better market. I'm glad they took it to the floor instead of trying to execute it electronically. I think that probably helped them. But, yeah, nice wide market that they love unloading on. And this one's actually a little busy today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's doing some paper. I was going to ask you, is it lighting up your Gamdar, sir?
It is not, but now that market's tightened up. It's 80 cents at 95, so that's a much better market now.
Yeah. You put up 10,000, that'll tighten things up.
So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say they sold these and that they're looking for yield. 85 cents on the 85 strike, 1% yield over the next call it 3.5 weeks. Not a terrible sale.
Yeah, not the worst. The market is the worst, but I wish I could have given a market like that back in the day. 50 cents and $5. The broker would have quite, not to his fault, probably would have punched me in the face, and I would have deserved it. But let's keep on rolling out here. Let's go back a little bit, listeners. Again, our cup overfloweth with crazy trades that we have profiled. I need to keep an eye on. We got to start paying some of these off before our cup explodes. It's too many names going in. We just put another one in. We got to take some out. Let's go back now to September 23rd, listeners, to Ericsson. Not even going back a month. The halcyon days of September. Oh, what a good time it was for all. And the September 23rd in particular, listeners, we were talking about what we refer to as the death trap puts. Remember, these are usually the pretty decently in the money, pretty meaty in the money puts that folks are selling. Typically, when we're talking about selling puts, it's what we just talked about, listeners. Out of the money puts, they get some little amount of premium for it. Rinse and repeat, they do it again. Sometimes, though, folks get dangerous. And that's where they go the death trap route. And they did that in Ericsson back on the 23rd. We profiled a 12,000 lot of the October 14 puts. These went up, listeners, and the stock was $11.38. So these were substantially in the money puts, going up for $2.73. And looks like paper was selling those bad boys at the time it was opening. It was a 46 vol, if you were curious, listeners. And let's see, these were going up with earnings. Earnings are actually tomorrow, so they dodged earnings on these bad boys, listeners, because they went out last night. Another thing we typically see, savvier folks tend not to want to ride that earnings wave off the cliff there over the falls. That's a bit of a dangerous thing. Our last friend didn't sell his put through earnings, and these people didn't sell their puts through earnings either. They expired last Friday. Let's see how they went. Like I said, the stock was $11.38, and let's see over the course of that month how Ericsson did. It kind of looks like it mostly drifted north. It actually had a little bit of a sell-off. After they put the trade up, the stock, like I said, was $11.38. It sold off to the low 11 level, hung out there for a while, 11.13, 11.16. Then it started rallying again. Getting into expiration week, it was rallying pretty good. By the time expiration came along last Friday, the stock closed at $12.18. So these puts were still open and they were still almost $2 in the money, but not quite as in the money as they were when they sold these bad boys. So looks like just on the put side alone, paper picking up about $3.25 million. The stock is still there right now. Stock is $12.20, so it hasn't really budged since the close on expiration. So hopefully these folks are enjoying themselves some nice shares of stock of Ericsson. They have earnings tomorrow, so maybe that was their plan. Maybe they wanted to get the stock put to them so they could ride it through earnings. Either way, that's what they got. So hopefully they're liking it. Mr. Meatball, what do you think about these? Making some money on the puts, but they're probably the proud owners of some stock now heading into earnings as well.
Yeah, those were interesting. They definitely own some stock. If these were a little more expensive, they might even be MEFI. Because
they were close. They were on the cusp, but not quite.
They were on the cusp. But I need the stock if they had sold like the 17s, they would have been MEFI. Little bit of premium, probably a way they probably wanted the stock. That would be the way I would, the way I'm looking at the way this trades. They probably wanted to take delivery and get some primo out of it, and they're probably happy campers and willing to ride Ericsson up.
Well, let's hope they are happy because they got what they wanted. They got their stock right before earnings. So yeah, there you go. Then you sell those kind of in the money puts. You got to be happy taking the stock, and they got the stock. They can't be too mad with the trade. We'll see if they're a little bit more angry after the earnings tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on Ericsson as we keep on rolling. Oh, Mr. Meatball, good thing you're on the show with us today because we get to go back now to your favorite name of all time. This is Darden Restaurant. Same show, September 23rd. We profile what looked like a kind of a risk reversal / collar going up out there in Darden Restaurants. It was at the time, let's see, the stock was $159.39, and someone was putting up about 5,000, about 5,200, really, of the OC 150, 170. Looks like a collar, so we're gonna talk about it that way. They bought the puts through the offer for $1.90. Excuse me, bought the puts through the offer for $1.90. Sold the calls through the bid for 59 cents. So they net did that whole collar for $1.31 that they paid for that collar. And listeners, the stock went out right through the put strike, 149.15 to be precise. So they got a little bit of the juice for those puts, but not quite enough. Remember, they paid $1.31 for that collar. The puts went out at 85 cents. Obviously, the calls went out worthless, so they dropped around $300,000 for this bad boy. Now, I should note they did it. Looks like on a little bit of a ratio later. More went up later, so maybe a total of somewhere around 6,500 of the puts and around about almost 9,000 of the calls. So about 1.3 to 1 ratio if all that second lot of paper was them. So they could have done that collar for a little bit better level, in which case they lost a little bit less money. But at the end of the day, it's still pretty much the same trade. So Mr. Meatball, it goes through their strike, but not quite enough to make that collar make much of a difference. They still end up losing some cash. What are your thoughts on this collar? And again, your most beloved name, sir, Darden Restaurants.
Well, when you own Darden Restaurants, you get what's coming to you. In this case, it was a losing trade. Darden, it produces some of the worst casual food that I've ever had in my life. The only thing that's actually decent that they own is Capital Grille. I'm not a fan, and they don't even own Red Lobster, which they sold at too cheap. We all know the management kind of stinks, and I'm sorry. Bread is not that hard to make, folks. I could throw a slice of Wonder Bread in the microwave oven, hit it with some butter, and you'd think it's delicious. Those breadsticks are not that good.
Ooh, hot take. Darden Restaurants breadsticks, not that good. But, he said we all get what we deserve. I think we all collectively deserve a dose of the strategy block. So let's get to it.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the block of strategery. I know there's been a bit of a crisis of confidence in Uncle Mike of late. due to his just rampant skullduggery. So now is the time, listeners, when, generous, forgiving folks that we are, we afford him the opportunity to make amends and to show us the depths of the options wit and our wisdom. We could lose ourselves in the strategery that is Uncle Mike. So, Uncle Mike, what do you have to offer us, sir, to make amends for the depths of your skullduggery?
Mark, with all this talk, you're questioning the integrity of professional wrestling.
It's real, baby. It's real.
You say that, but you don't act it. Anyway, with the strategy block, what I want to talk about today is there's advantages and disadvantages of trading an index versus trading an individual stock. And then, of course, there's no rule that says that you're not allowed to trade both. But what I want to get into today is why you may want to consider trading an index and why you may want to consider trading an individual stock. Now, within an index, you're typically not going to have as many sudden moves. With earnings coming up, we'll see a lot of companies, the Googles, Apples, Facebooks, Amazons, you'll see them move 8-10% in a day after an earnings announcement comes out after hours. Now, of course, you can use that to your advantage in the option trading world, but also that can be something that can be used as a big disadvantage against you if you are not on the correct side of the trade. Now, on an index, on the other hand, the index will move some over the course of the next couple of weeks, but it typically does not move near as much as certain individual stocks do because it is made up of multiple stocks. You have 30 stocks in the Dow, you have 500 stocks in the S&P 500. Now, with that, for individual aggressive trading, I personally prefer trading the S&P. That's what I probably spend about 90% of my time doing during the day. With that, also, I do invest and have client money invested in individual stocks. And so we have our strategic night fund at RCM to where we have a basket of stocks. We have our covered call fund to where we have various stocks, and we're selling covered calls and call spreads and short puts, doing things like that. But ultimately, I think the important thing here is to have an understanding of what you're getting when you're trading an individual stock versus trading an index. So, for example, if I were to buy a call on a high-flying individual stock and the stock goes higher, I'll probably make more money than had I done the same thing on an SPX or a DJX or an NDX option, depending on what index, or an RUT, whatever you wanted to look at. Individual stocks typically do have a lot more movement in them. However, let's say that I want to be a premium seller. And I think, oh, wow, I can get more premium if I sell it against an individual stock. Well, understand that once again, when you have the large moves in earnings that we're likely going to have over the course of the next couple of weeks, now it could be a resounding meh, as to quote my colleague Mark Longo, with earnings. But if you do have those large movements, there is going to be more risk involved while taking on that risk. So I'm of the school of thought that for shorter term trading, my preference is typically in the index. Not to say that I'll never buy calls on Amazon and Apple or something like that, but typically what I prefer doing for aggressive trading, whether it's selling verticals, whether it's buying diagonals or horizontals, or just buying calls or butterflies, I like to use the index. I feel that with a lesser move, that is more boredom, if you will, but there's less surprises. Now, of course, there is still plenty of surprises because there's nothing certain, but I prefer the index with my own money and my client money just because of the fact that there's no other major asset class that has outperformed the S&P 500 over the last 100 years or so. And if you're invested in the S&P 500, you're invested in 80% of all U.S. business and commerce. And I feel more comfortable with that as what I'm trading, or investing for that matter, personally, than any individual stock. So with that, have an understanding of what you're trading and why you're trading, and understand the risks of each, regardless of what decision you make. And that is the strategy block for today.
All right, we got a little time here, so let's keep on rolling into a real quick mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block, the portion of the show where you guys ask questions. And also, usually, beginning of the week here, we like to pay off last week's question of the week. Last week was a pretty fascinating. I love them all. They all provide interesting insight into what's going on with you folks out there. But last week was kind of an intriguing one. We asked you, there's been an explosion of new options traders entering the market since the pandemic. So we thought we'd ask you, when did you start trading options? Gave you 4 timeframes: post-pandemic, post-great financial crisis, post.com bust, or you're in the old school market maker or trader category. And it broke down not quite half, about 45% almost of you chose the post-great financial crisis period. So sometime between 2008 and now is when you got lured to the dark side of options. But recent additions, recent entrants, the post-pandemic crowd had a strong showing, 30%. It kind of hung out around a third for most of the polling out there. So 30.1% of you have started trading options just pretty much in the last 18 or so months. So that's really interesting. And again, we see that anecdotally looking at the numbers for our shows and things, but it's always fascinating to see it in stark relief right in front of you. So that's very brand new. Again, if you are amongst that cadre of new traders, check out the episode of Options Bootcamp we just did over there, where we pretty much break down, what's really not normal about these markets and what you maybe shouldn't expect over the long term. But if you're just coming into options now, maybe your frame of reference a little bit skewed, pun intended. Check out that episode. I think it'll maybe help set you straight on some things out there. .com bust period, 14.6%. And the old school market maker, trader, broker crowd came in at about almost 11% out there, which we know there's a lot of pros floating around out there as well. Just obviously not as many of you as there are the post-pandemic crowd, which, again, gels with what we're seeing out there. Let's go on out now to the question of the week this week. Kind of a corollary to last week's question. We asked you last week, when did you start trading options? This week, we thought we'd ask the related question of why. What was the catalyst? What brought you to the dark side of trading options? We gave you 4 reasons. Obviously, it's hard to encompass the entirety of why you might start trading options with only 4 choices. So have at it if you have other reasons why you got into options. But we gave you 4 choices. You wanted to catch the meme stock wave, which for a lot of you coming in the last 18 or so months probably was a big driver. Also, you wanted to just find a way to hedge your stock portfolio, or maybe you wanted to improve on the leverage of said stock portfolio. Maybe you're graduating from another derivatives product, futures. So those are the 4 choices we gave you. Again, there are a legion of potential choices we could have thrown out there. And let's go out. Let's go on the horn really quickly and see what people think. Let's go out to the Meatball first. Again, this just went live before showtime, so it's still early days, Mr. Meatball. But what do you think is winning our poll for why people are trading options these days, or why they got started trading options, I should say? Catch the meme stock wave, hedging their stock portfolio, higher portfolio leverage, or they graduated from futures?
I would say meme stock wave.
Interesting. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. Which of these do you think is leading the race right now?
I'm going to go with leveraging their holdings.
Winner, chicken dinner for Uncle Mike. Right now, 2/3, 66.7% saying higher portfolio leverage. It's a tie for number 2. And with hedging my stock portfolio and graduating from futures, both around 17%. No love so far for catching the meme stock wave, which is surprising to me. Again, it just has been live for, a few minutes. So we'll see how this evolves over time. Get on over there to @options on the old Twitters. Make your voice heard. And one of the reasons I love this one is because I'm looking forward to your others. I'm sure there are many and varied other responses to this. So hit us up with those. You folks have never been shy with your others. So I'm looking forward to those as well. As we keep on rolling to let you know what we're keeping an eye on, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. What are we keeping an eye on this week? Let's go around the horn. Let's start with the greasiest Meatball. Mr. Meatball, sir, what is lighting up your tape and what's lighting up your Gamdar these days over there in the land of the pit, sir?
Yeah, looking ahead, I think we got a lot of earnings this week. I think that's going to drive things. EV names are blowing up. That is all over the Gamdar, if you will. And I'm watching some of these retail names. Ulta Cosmetic is back over $400. It is at a 2-year high. Wondering how high that one can go. So that's another one I'm watching. And then, we got all the travel names down a little bit. A lot of earnings there this week. Keep an eye on that. I think the other area where there's some big earnings, CSX has earnings on the 20th after the close. That is a name I'm watching closely. I want to hear what they have to say about transportation, what's going on with coal, and what's going on with all of the backlog of supply chain issues.
Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on this week?
4,500, 1.5, and earnings. Very simple to say the least. Seeing if we can make another run at 4,500 as the meatball thinks we can. Watching the 10-year note to see where we are with the 1.5 level, to see how close we can stay to that general area. And there's a lot of earnings coming up.
There are a lot of earnings coming up indeed. And you know what else is coming up, listeners? Stay tuned. If you're listening live, you'll get the crypto rundown in about exactly an hour. Got great guests joining me to help break down these crazy moves Uncle Mike was alluding to earlier out there. Got Bitcoin back in the 60K range. And some other big moves and some other products. Big news out there as well on the ETF front. A lot of big stuff going on in the world of crypto. So we'll be breaking it down in about exactly an hour. If you're listening live, we're going to have to rejigger a little bit. So bring on our guests for the next show. So we'll be turning off the live for a little bit. But we'll be back in exactly an hour for all that fun. And of course, if you're listening after the fact, just hit next. It'll be ready and waiting for you on your device of choice. And Mr. Uncle Mike, if folks are intrigued, they want to learn more about the land of St. Charles, where should they go? What should they do?
They can follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW, or visit my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you're looking for a financial advisor who likes the option product.
Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. Where should they go if they want to learn more? Maybe check out the Gamdar.
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. We're writing awesome VIX content, awesome options content every day. Make sure you're coming to visit the site every day to get the latest and greatest analysis on options in the world that is not executed over podcasts.
I was about to say, sir, you're about to walk a very fine line, but you walked it back. Well done. Optionpit.com is the place to go to learn more. And, of course, we'll be back again for this show on Thursday. In between then, of course, we got an awesome pro Q&A coming up tomorrow with the one and only Mr. Tony Saliba. Of course, we have Wednesday. We have Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio. And, again, we'll see you back here on Thursday for episode 2 of the Option Block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.